All right, guys, welcome back to the fly bench. We're kind of doing a continuation of the pine squirrel leech that we did last time. We're going to be doing the Landon mini leech today. It's Boxing Day today, so I hope everyone had a great holiday. We're going to let that settle and go over the material list and yeah, flip the camera around and away we go. Wish I could give this beer a quick drink now, but it's gonna take a minute or two here. All right, that's looking pretty good. Cheers, guys. All right, guys, so I'm gonna do two different variations of the Landon mini leech today. This one, we got a red holographic tinsel underbody. I'm also gonna do one with a sparkle braid in an olive color. So that'll be pretty cool. Pretty easy pattern to tie, very simple. So we just got the underbody, whatever color you choose. Usually like a red, a green, something that'll stand out a little bit, a pearl, something to give it a bit of a flash. We got pine squirrel leech, or pine squirrel is the tail, the zonker strips. I've added a little bit of Krystal Flash in there just to make it stand out a bit. And then we finish the fly off with some ostrich herl up at the collar here. You can tie this fly pattern with a bead or without a bead. Both of mine today are going to be with a bead. And then let's get started here, guys. Cheers. Okay, so first up, we're going to be using, this is a size 10 Arex hook, curved nymph barbless hook. Very strong hook. The black color is also very nice. For tying thread, I just put on some black UTC 70. Just something plain, simple, easy to tie with. The bead that we're using is a black 7/64, which I believe is a 2.7 mil? Yeah, 2.7 millimeter bead. This is a black nickel. Again, you don't need to tie this fly pattern with a bead. Mainly depends on how you're gonna fish it. So if you need to get it down deep, yeah, I'd recommend putting a bead on there, maybe a heavier fly line. And if you're just gonna be stripping this thing through the water, either in the river or on the lake, take the bead off and use a lighter fly line. So for this first fly pattern that I'm going to tie, I just wanted to dress the hook. Probably didn't need to go the whole distance there, but I'm just going to be tying on this olive sparkle braid. So I'll show you what that looks like here in a second, but it comes on a nice little spool. It's kind of a thicker material. And we're just going to tie that down as far as we can get it. And then we're going to bring our thread back up to just behind the bead. So that's what it looks like here. Comes on a spool. It's a cool little material. It's great for doing underbodies, that sort of thing, which is exactly what we're doing here today. And then we're just going to wrap this up. And we're going to wrap right up to behind the bead. Try to get, if you can overlap or get as close as you can to overlapping. We just don't want the black thread to kind of poke through. And we're just going to bring this all the way up to behind the bead where we can tie this off. Give that a snip. And then we can come in here with our pine squirrel. So I've just peeled off a little section here. Important to note that we want the hair flow to be going back towards the hook point. I'm going to take the point here and just rip off a section so we can tie it in. So rip off a bit of the hairs at the front. So I've just kind of isolated or exposed that tip there. And then we're just going to use that to tie it in at the top. And then just kind of pull hard on the thread, not too hard that you're obviously going to break it, but we want that piece to be secured in. One of the things that Landon talks about when he came up with this fly is that he wants the pine squirrel to be fairly short. So if you can cut it less than an inch, that's kind of what we're going for here. That Kilkenny is a nice beer. Okay, so that's what we're going to cut off here, just about a less than an inch, just to kind of give, so you can kind of expose the hair. Come in here, trim that off. Then we got a nice clear little break point. So it is a mini leech pattern, right? So we don't want the tail to be too deep. I'm going to come in with some Krystal Flash just to give that tail a bit of color. So just tie in the Krystal Flash. We'll do my side here behind the camera first. Flip this tag end around. And we'll tie in on the camera side. And then I'm going to trim the Krystal Flash just a little bit shorter than the tail. So when that's moving through the water, hopefully a cruising trout will be able to pick that up pretty quick. So we got the nice olive color underneath, which gives it a bit of a shine. We got the Krystal Flash running through the tail there. And then the last bit of material that we're gonna need, excuse me, is just gonna be some ostrich herl. Okay, so you can see how the plumes on the ostrich herl, this is a black or charcoal color, by the way. The plumes are nice, and then the closer we get to that butt section of the feather, they get a little bit smaller, and they only appear to be on one side. So I'm just gonna fan that out with my hands and find out where that point is, where it starts to look kind of bad. And then I'm just gonna cut that point off. So we're only, excuse me, so we're only gonna be tying in the nicer looking feathers. And then I'm gonna rip off just to give us a bit of a tie-in point. Maybe come in here a bit and shorten that up just a little. So there's our tie-in point. And we'll tie that in on top of the fly pattern, right on the hook there. Bring our thread, again, just behind the bead. And then we're just gonna wrap this up, wrap it around. Try to get as close as you can just to make the fly look extra bushier. Ostrich herl is a nice material to work with. Come in with our tying thread and just try to be careful not to trap, just as I say that, try not to trap any of those plumes. You can pull it back with your hand like I'm doing right now. Gives it a bit more of a cleaner break. Trim that excess off. And come in here with our whip finish. Cinch that knot down. And then trim off our excess thread. So there we go. Landon Myers Mini Leech. Fantastic little pattern, super simple to tie. So this is with the green braided or sparkle braid. The next one we're gonna do, I'm gonna use red holographic tinsel, just to kind of show you how easy it is to change this fly up. And again, I'm using black zonker, the pine squirrel, for both of these flies. But what you can do is also use like an olive color, an olive brown, so you can really mix it up and have a good variety in your fly box. I'm just getting some, oh, this is extra small. That's gonna be too small. So this is a small black wire that we're gonna use for this one. So let's start our thread. Same thread again, black UTC 70. Grab that small black wire And we're just going to tie that in right behind the bead as well. And just bring that down the fly. Right down the hook shank. So we want our thread, because our next material is going to be that holographic tinsel. So we want to go bring our thread down as far as we can there. So that looks pretty good. And then tie in our holographic tinsel. This is a size medium. Medium's a good size to use just because it gives you less wraps around the hook if you're using anything smaller. Obviously, you're going to have to do a couple more revolutions around the hook. So this size just makes it easy. Tie that in. And then just bring my thread back up to the bead there. We'll just leave it back as we wrap this holographic tinsel up. Try to get it overlapping again as close as you can. We don't want to see any of that black thread poking through. You can always switch your thread color just in case you do. And even if you don't, I mean, it's not really not a big deal, but it just looks a lot nicer. So you can see this one's got a bit of a thinner profile than that sparkle braid. So we'll just bring this up to behind the bead, and then we'll tie that off. To tie it off, you just do a couple wraps in front, a couple wraps behind. And then we're going to bring our black wire up to the bead here. So the black wire just adds a level of durability to the fly, just to protect that holographic tinsel. So after a few fish take this fly in their mouths and bite it, the tendency to rip the holographic tinsel will be heavily reduced. Okay, helicopter this wire off until it breaks nicely. And then I'm just going to take a couple more thread wraps just behind, just to make sure that everything is secured in. We're going to be using the pine squirrel here in a second, but you just want to make sure that we're not, the wire will have a tendency to move if it's not tied in properly. Cheers, guys. Okay, so we get our pine squirrel again. Our hair, or the flow of the hair, is heading back towards the hook point, which is what we want. I'm going to rip off that section again just to give us a tie-in point. Place now another little trick. If you place it right on top of the hook, and when you go to wrap it, you can see how it pushes towards you. So if I start with that tie-in point a little bit on my side, when I go to tie that in, it'll sit more on top of the fly. Okay. And I'm just applying a little bit more pressure with every wrap. And now we're going to trim this. And again, we're just looking for about less than an inch. Maybe even a little bit smaller. And you're just looking for a point there that's going to look nice. Trim that off. There we go. Add in our Krystal Flash. So this Krystal Flash is just a UV pearl. Just a nice color. I'm going to start with my side here again. And then we'll flip that Krystal Flash over, tie it in on your side. Bring my thread again behind the bead, trim off the excess, and we'll make that a little bit smaller than the tail. There we go. And now we just need to add our ostrich herl. So same thing again. Find the end of the feather, fray out all those plumes until you get to the end, and you can see where it's looking a little shaky, a little dicey. We're just going to rip those off. And and then trim that stem just to give us a clean tie-in point, something that our thread can hang on to. And then just begin wrapping. If you can kind of pull the fibers back as you wrap, great. Ostrich herl is kind of a forgiving little piece. It looks nice and bushy throughout. And then just very carefully try not to trap any plumes. Grab our whip finish tool. And there we have it. Fantastic little fly pattern. Strip these around the weed beds. Put on a bead, put it on a full sink line, put on an intermediate sink line without a bead. Yeah, it's a fantastic fly. It stands out really well. Looks great underwater. Fish take it pretty hard. When I was first introduced to this fly, it was Cam. You might recognize Cam from Broken Tibbet. He outfished me. It's probably like 4 or 5 to 1. He was just slaying them on this fly. So it didn't take long before I had to get a couple of these in my fly box, and I'm glad that he introduced me to them because yeah, it's a deadly little fly, and super versatile. Tie it in different colors, do your thing, get creative with it. But yeah, the Myers Mini Leech. Enjoy, guys. Thanks again for watching, and as always, fish on.